The rain wouldn't stop. It tapped the windows like it was trying to get in, like it wanted to crawl inside and sit with her at the kitchen table, where a white envelope lay unopened. Maria Jordan hadn't moved in 10 minutes. The kettle behind her had clicked off long ago, and the tea she made sat cold beside the letter she didn't ask for. She finally reached out. Her fingers moved slowly, brushing over the edge of the envelope. Her nails were chipped. She used to have them painted every week, back when she was touring, when her voice was on billboards and her name sold out shows. Now, her world was quiet, stale, careful. She peeled the envelope open. Inside was a thick, creamy invitation, the kind that came from money and people who liked things grand. A pale gold ribbon wrapped around the folded card. She slid it off, her breath shallow. Her hands didn't shake, but only because she was holding them too tightly. Camilla and James, together with their families, invite you to celebrate. Her eyes skipped down the page. Saturday at 5 o'clock. Royal Hall's estate. Dinner and dancing to follow. But it was the line at the bottom that stopped her cold. Special performance by Maria Jordan. Her name. Right there. Neat and bold, like it belonged. Like she wanted to be part of it. Her chest tightened. The man who used to hold her every night was marrying someone else. The same woman he told her not to worry about. The one who started showing up at his work dinners. The one who commented on all his posts when they were still married. And now Maria was expected to sing at their wedding, as if her heartbreak was background music. Her fingers curled around the invitation. A knock on the door of her memory came uninvited. James's voice, smiling. Your voice is magic, you know that. You should sing at our wedding. That voice used to make her knees go weak. Now it made her stomach turn. Her phone buzzed, the light casting a glow across the kitchen counter. It was a message from Mrs. Ellie, James's aunt. Sweet, chatty, and always a little too hopeful. Sweetheart, it would mean so much if you came. Camilla thought it would bring closure. We all know your voice is part of this family story. Just one song, nothing dramatic. Maria read it twice, then again. Closure? She could almost hear Camilla's voice in the phrasing. Soft, controlled, full of sugar, but laced with something sharp. They didn't want peace. They wanted performance. They wanted her to show up, painted and polite, and sing something light, maybe something romantic and harmless, so they could feel mature, evolved, unbothered. They wanted to clap for her while watching her bleed beneath the notes. Maria exhaled through her nose. She stood, paced the length of the room, her bare feet pressed into the cold tile. Part of her wanted to laugh. This was the closure they offered. She stopped, looked back at the invitation. Then something in her eyes changed. Not rage, not sorrow. Clarity. She sat back down, picked up her phone, reread Mrs. Ellie's message, and then, without hesitation, she typed 3 words. I'll be there. Not for them. Not to forgive. Not even to heal. To sing, on her terms. To remind everyone who she was. Maria picked up the invitation, folded it carefully, and slid it back into the envelope. She pushed her tea aside, stood tall, and walked to her room. She opened the closet, found the black dress, the one she hadn't worn since the last show before everything fell apart. She laid it on the bed like armor. Fine, she whispered to herself. You want a show? You'll get one. The wedding hall looked like something from a dream someone else was having. Golden lights spilled from crystal chandeliers overhead, painting everything in a soft glow. Tall glass towers filled with white roses stood like monuments on every table. Strings of pearls and crystal strands hung from the ceiling, catching the light with every small breeze that passed through the open double doors. Everywhere Maria looked, people were dressed like they belonged in a magazine. Tailored suits, backless gowns, champagne flutes in hand, laughter on cue. Cameras flashed. Plates clinked gently. Guests air-kissed cheeks, whispering greetings they didn't really mean. And then she entered. No fanfare, no announcement, just a woman in a long black dress that clung to her like a second skin, flowing behind her as she moved. Her heels made no sound, but her presence did. Heads began to turn. Eyes narrowed. She wore no jewelry, no makeup that screamed for attention. Her face was bare, her hair swept back. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Whispers followed her like a shadow. Is that her? That's his ex-wife. She looks. Wow. Why is she here? Maria didn't flinch. She walked slowly, eyes forward, straight to the far right of the room where the stage waited. She stood near it, microphone already in her hand. The cool metal felt unfamiliar after a year away from it. It had been 12 months since she last sang. 12 months since she last let her voice touch the world. Back then, her voice belonged to someone else. Now, she wasn't sure who it belonged to, but she was about to find out. Across the room, Camilla caught sight of her. She was surrounded by bridesmaids in champagne satin, all laughing at some story she was telling. But when she saw Maria, she stopped. For a moment, nothing moved. Then she lifted her glass slowly, smiled like she was the one hosting the Oscars, and gave Maria a smug little nod. A mock toast, a private victory. Maria didn't return it. James didn't look up. He was seated to Camilla's left, staring into the screen of his phone, pretending not to notice the rising murmur around the room. Maria adjusted the mic in her hands, her fingers tightening on the shaft as a man in a headset approached her. "You're on in 5, he said, eyes on his clipboard. "We'll cue the track from the booth." She nodded. He didn't ask how she felt. No one had. Camilla had already chosen the song. A soft romantic cover, safe and sweet. A crowd pleaser. Nothing personal. Nothing true. They didn't want her. They wanted her voice. The history. The symbolism. The show. Maria stared at the sheet music taped to the side of the mic stand. She didn't even read it. She already knew she wasn't going to sing it. They thought they had planned her part. They didn't know what she had written the night she got the invitation. They didn't know she'd been practicing every night since, alone in her apartment, in front of a mirror, turning pain into lyrics, grief into melody. They didn't know she had a voice again, and this time, it wasn't theirs. The music faded from the speakers as the DJ cut it clean. The host appeared at the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said cheerfully, "please welcome a very special surprise. One of the most powerful voices of her generation. You all know her. You've missed her. Let's welcome Maria Jordan." A polite applause rippled through the room. Maria stepped onto the stage. Each step steady. Her dress whispered across the floor. Her eyes didn't search for anyone. Not James, not Camilla, not even Mrs. Ellie. She faced the crowd. The lights hit her skin like sunlight through glass. She gripped the mic, and for the first time in a long time, she took a full breath. Then she breathed in and began to sing. The lights dimmed, all but one. A single spotlight settled on Maria like a hand on her shoulder, steady, bright, and unblinking. It lit the curve of her black dress, which shimmered like midnight silk. The chatter stopped. Glasses paused midair. Even the staff near the back froze where they stood. Maria didn't blink. She stood center stage, microphone in hand, feet planted firm. Her body was still, but something inside her pulsed like electricity. The crowd stared. Camilla sat tall in her white gown, a fortress of satin and tall. Her body didn't move, but her fingers betrayed her, tightened around the stem of her champagne flute, thumb tapping restlessly at the glass. James shifted, barely. He'd avoided her eyes all night. But now, under this strange hush, he looked. Their eyes met for less than a second, just long enough for him to remember something that used to mean everything. Maria inhaled through her nose. The band in the corner waited for her nod, poised to begin the delicate, lovely track Camilla had picked. Maria didn't nod. She looked over at the musicians, shook her head once. They blinked. No music. She stepped forward, and she began to sing. I held your name in my mouth like a secret, soft and sharp, sweet and wrong. I buried my dreams in a box you forgot, while you built new ones overnight. The words weren't sweet. They weren't safe. They didn't float through the room. They landed. People leaned forward, not with excitement, but tension. Surprise. A chill ran through the polished, golden hall. This wasn't the planned performance. This was something else. A truth no one had asked for. Maria's voice trembled only once. Then it rose, warm, full, and cut from something ancient. The kind of voice people didn't forget. Not because it was pretty, but because it meant something. You fed me silence, dressed it up as peace, gave my spotlight to a stranger, called it kindness when you left me. But I was still bleeding in the dark. A woman near the back pressed her fingers to her lips and whispered, "Is this about him?" Someone else gasped. Tears welled up in the eyes of a man in his 50s. A bridesmaid, one of Camilla's, in pale gold, was crying, clutching her napkin like it was an anchor. Mrs. Ellie's hands covered her mouth, eyes wide and wet. Camilla's shoulders had gone stiff. Her smile, carefully painted and practiced, was gone now, replaced by a strange emptiness. She didn't blink. Her glass was still in her hand, untouched. James sat like a statue. Maria didn't sing to either of them. She didn't look their way again. Her gaze swept across the crowd but didn't settle. She sang through them, like she was looking at something far beyond this room. Through years of ache, through all the nights she spent crying on the bathroom floor, through the songs she stopped writing, through the voice she thought she'd lost. Her heart didn't beg. Her song didn't plead. It told the truth. It was heavy and beautiful and sharp as glass. And as the final verse came, her voice didn't falter. It didn't scream. It declared, "You left, and I found more than love. I found me." The silence afterward wasn't hollow. It was full, so full it seemed to press against the walls, pressing down on shoulders, curling into throats. No one moved. No one whispered. Maria's final note lingered somewhere just out of reach, like smoke that hadn't yet cleared. What remained was something raw. There was no cue for what came next. No music, no signal, just the weight of truth settling across the room like dusk. People didn't know whether to breathe or bow. Maria stood still, the microphone lowered to her side, her expression unreadable. Not smug, not triumphant, just done. Like she'd closed a book no one else had the courage to open. She didn't glance at the crowd. She didn't need their approval. She had told the truth in front of everyone who once watched her disappear. Slowly, in the third row, an older woman stood. She had gray curls and a pearl pin in her scarf, her hand pressed to her chest. Her eyes glistened with tears, not out of pity, but recognition. She clapped, just once, then again. A man beside her stood and followed, then another woman, then a pair of groomsmen near the back. The applause rose, not thunderous, not rushed, but deep, steady, reverent. It wasn't for entertainment. It was for something sacred, something rare. They weren't clapping for a wedding singer. They were clapping for a woman who walked into the fire they lit for her and came out singing. Maria didn't wait for the sound to grow. She didn't stand there soaking in it like applause was her prize. That wasn't why she came. She turned slowly. Her heels tapped against the marble floor with a rhythm that felt final, almost ceremonial. Like each step said enough. Like each step peeled away the old version of her they thought they still owned. She didn't look at James. She didn't give Camilla the dignity of a second glance. But she felt them. Camilla's entire body had stiffened, her hands clenched in her lap like she was holding herself together with invisible thread. Her jaw was locked, her face pale. James, slumped slightly, shoulders deflated, moved just enough to reach for her as she passed. His fingers grazed the air between them, searching for the woman who used to hold his hand and his heart. He didn't find her. Maria kept walking. Past the white roses, past the mirrored vases, past the string quartet that hadn't played a note since she stepped on stage. And then, without pause, she walked through the tall open doors of the reception hall and into the night. The wind met her like it had been waiting, cool, gentle, brushing against her skin like an old friend. Her dress fluttered at the hem. The sounds of the city came back in soft layers. Distant laughter, a siren far off, the hush of traffic, but none of it was louder than the calm inside her. She paused outside beneath a row of golden lights. For the first time in what felt like years, her shoulders relaxed. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. She simply breathed, deep and even, as if she were filling her lungs with her own silence, her own story. She hadn't come to sing at their wedding. She hadn't come to heal them. She had come to return what they left inside her and take back what was always hers. Her voice, her worth, her power. They invited her to play the good sport, the sad chapter they could parade for applause. But Maria wasn't their footnote. She was the author. She hadn't just performed. She had spoken, and they had no choice but to listen. They would never forget her. Did Maria's voice speak to something in you? Like this if her courage stirred something deep. Subscribe for more stories where broken hearts rise higher. Comment below. What line left you breathless? Share this with someone who needs the reminder. Your voice is not decoration. It's transformation.